Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. I hope everybody's having a decent day. It has definitely been a challenging day for me for more than one reason, but I'm standing here. Well, sitting, actually, but I'm still here. I want to stop in and talk. I sort of alluded to this in an earlier video, and I want to give it a little bit more attention and apply myself to being a part of the solution in a way that maybe I'm not already doing. I think that those of you who have followed me over the last 10 years, as I've progressed and evolved with what I do on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest, and so on, you know that I've done a lot of work in advocating for our sisters in a number of different reasons. You know, I have a specific passion for covering our women. You probably also know that my wife, Marion, whom I love dearly, is a childhood sexual abuse and rape survivor, and has dealt with domestic abuse from childhood. And so, matter of fact, that's how we met. She was initially referred to me, and I worked with her for about a year. She went her way. I went on to do what I was doing, and we crossed paths again about a year later. And I told her at that point I wanted her to be my wife, and we've been doing this thing ever since. But I have a passion for it, and I've seen so much in the work that I do. And I am not oblivious to the fact that Black men are definitely going through some things. I'm not oblivious to the fact that we have problems of our own. But I am a man that believes that if we can't protect our women, we have a problem. If we can't create safe spaces for our women, if we can't put a message out for our women, then we are definitely in a very bad situation. I'm here because, again, today, something came across my desk. A young lady out of Appleton. I can't really place her name right now because so much has been going on, and I haven't looked at the story since this morning, but her boyfriend attacked her, stabbed her in the chest, the arms, the torso, and the neck. She fled the house. As she fled the house, he turned on her 3-year-old daughter and stabbed her to death, a 3-year-old. When questioned as to why, it was because she told him she didn't want to be with him anymore. And to get rid of the pain and the anger, he decided to get rid of her so that he could let go of the pain and the anger. His reasoning and his rationale was to destroy her, and that would alleviate the pain. I've said this before. There is a video where I talk about the fact that we are literally creating emotionally weak and emotionally unstable Black men who don't have the capacity to manage their egos. Their egos are fragile, and their ability to navigate through the things that are just normal in life. I can tell you, I consider myself to be somewhat of a catch. I've always considered myself to be, appealing. Even in my younger years, being in shape, being an athlete, being successful, I always felt it. But I also always knew that any woman could tell me no at any time. That no matter who I wasn't going to always be appealing. I also understood that even those who found me attractive and decided that they wanted to spend time with me had the right at any time to decide that they no longer wanted to spend time with me. And I had to be okay with that. And I was okay with it. To me, as a man, to be truthfully, if there isn't a risk in a woman rejecting you, there's really no challenge. In other words, it's the idea that if I'm not at my apex, if I'm not on my game, that I might not get what I want. Makes you stand up and be the best you can be to have what you want. And that has to go both ways, but it's so much more than that. And I talked about that in the previous video today. I've done hours and hours and hours upon hours of research into African American adolescent and young adult male violence. I understand the catalyst behind it. I understand it. I'm not here to render any excuses. There are no excuses. But what I can tell you is Black men aren't born violent. Black men aren't born with a proclivity to abuse our women. That is a developed characteristic. That is a developed trait. That is something that comes with a lack of proper modeling of manhood. That comes with a lack of proper socialization into manhood, which is a problem in the Black community. When you have 1.5 million Black men missing, that means there's a large number of Black children who aren't witnessing proper manhood being exhibited in their home and in their community. And what happens is now you have an entire generation or two that are left with trying to figure the manhood conundrum out. And if, as a man, I can tell you, with a strong man guiding you, this manhood thing can be quite a challenge. And being a Black man can definitely be quite a challenge. Again, not rendering or offering any excuse for the horrid and evil behavior of what has become far too common. That's not my goal. My goal is to gain an understanding, because here's what happens. We can sit up and we can post, shaking my head, oh my God, that's horrible, that's evil, that's sad. And at the end of the day, we still have a dead woman, or in this case, a traumatized and injured woman and a dead child. And many times both dead, mother dead and child dead, at the hands of a Black man. We need to, first of all, have back end and front end. My whole thing is we as Black men are going to have to hold these cowards accountable. Yeah, they got him. I mean, Mika, they have him, and that's how we know what happened. He was just telling them, look, she broke up with me. It hurt, so I hurt her. That's how these men think. And I've had, my first marriage was absolutely horrible. I can't tell you the things in the way that I was disrespected in a home that I was providing, in the way that I was disrespected, and another person was invited into my marriage. And never did the thought cross my mind to kill the mother of my children. Never did the thought cross my mind to harm her. Despite all the hell that she was bringing into my life, I just came to the conclusion that this wasn't going to be the person I could spend my life with, and I needed to move on. And that's one of the few times I've ever talked about it. I don't even badmouth her. That's the first time I've talked about it. None of you know her, so it really doesn't matter. But I don't even do that. That's the way I am. You know, Marion gets mad because I won't talk about some of the things that my exes have done or are doing. And it's just, look, that's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to be me. People will know me by the life I live. If people are around me enough, they know who I am. I'm not going to defend myself by attacking someone. If they feel that's what they need to do, they do it. But then again, I was reared by C.D. Wallace. I was reared by a man's man. I was told that you always protect the woman. I was told you always cover the woman. And that's what I do. I don't need to defend myself. My grandmother taught me, son, you don't have to go around telling people who you are. Let the life that you live speak for you. And so that's what I do. So that's what I try to teach the young boys at Black Men Lead. But anyway, what we have here is we need to hold these clowns and cowards accountable, but we also need to be aware of the fact that there's a cause. Nothing happens, no effect or result happens without a cause. There's always cause and effect in the universe. And what we have to be aware of is the cause. And I've spent thousands of hours literally studying and researching and developing programs and concepts that address this issue. And in this, what we find is there are some common threads when it comes to African American adolescent and young adult male violence. And that is three primaries, the five most common influential factors on predicting African American adolescent and young adult male violence. The third one is being a victim of violence themselves. The fourth is witnessing violence. Both of those two serve to desensitize the individual to violence, so that violence isn't as appalling, and that it isn't as something that, you know, that they would look at and say is awful. It's a part of life to them. So that's being a victim and witnessing violence. The fifth is urban hassle. What urban hassle is, it's the things that inner city kids are forced to deal with. Ambulances all time of the night, sirens all time of the night, gunfire all time of the day and night, having to navigate gang violence and drug activity to get to and from school. If you live on the East Coast or in the Midwest, L trains running all times of the day and night. You know, just bickering and arguing in the stairways and the halls of tenement buildings. All of this is called urban hassle, and it puts a kid on the edge. But there are two things that are at the top of the list. The first thing is the feeling of being disrespected. There's nothing that will push a black male from teenage years, or even pre-adolescent, from 12 years up, 12 years old up, will push them to violence quicker than them feeling like somebody disrespected them. It's instilled in them. It's a part of them not being able to navigate the natural development of testosterone in their bodies, where they become stronger and they become naturally more aggressive. One of the things that we teach our young boys at Black Men Lead is that at a certain time, you're going to start to experience changes, physiological changes in your body. Your voice is going to become deeper. Your voice is going to become deeper. You're going to become stronger. Your muscles are going to develop. You're going to become significantly stronger than your female counterpart of the same age. And and then you're going to become more naturally aggressive. And what you have to understand is the aggression is to create the willingness to defend the weaker entity within the social group. So in other words, your natural development of strength beyond what the woman has is for the purpose of protecting the woman. The aggression is to make you willing to protect the woman, that when the woman is in danger, you will naturally, without thinking, come to her aid. That's what it's for. But see, in order for that to really set in, there has to be a model. There has to be men who put women first. There has to be men who, regardless of what happens, never disrespect women. There have to be men who are willing to stand up and cover women. And I mean in every way, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, financially as well. You have to be willing to cover our women. And when I talk about it, I'm not just talking about covering the one you want to marry or the one you marry. I'm talking about a Black woman should feel safest in the presence of a Black man. And that's where we are failing, is because we are not modeling and setting an example of what true Black manhood is. And then there's nothing. So you got an entire generation of young Black males who are sitting up and trying to navigate what this feeling is, and then they're doing it in a world where they literally experience no power or authority, and so now they kill for it. They kill for a block that doesn't belong to them, because they're fighting for what should naturally be a part of their experience, the ability to exhibit authority and leadership, but it does not. The opportunity does not present itself. Well, we have to create that. That's the responsibility of Black men. Yes, we do have 1.5 million Black men who are missing. What does that mean? We have to fill in the gaps. We have to be willing to stand up and say, you know what? We're going to have to go out and find these young men, and we've got to get them at an early age, because at 4 to 6, they're still pretty innocent. 6, 7, they're still pretty innocent. Between 8, they're starting to see some things outside, and they're starting to get an idea of what life is like based off of what they're seeing in the street. The last thing that we can afford to do is have the streets raise our young boys, because while they will become violent, they will become violent towards anything. They will turn on themselves. They will turn on the women they were meant to defend. And they will fight and infight because they will hurt what's closest to them, because that's all they have access to. We have to make them emotionally mobile, financially mobile, intellectually mobile, and we have to teach them and socialize them into the expectations of Black manhood. What do I mean by that? The first thing that we teach them at Black Men Lead is a Black man is to never bring harm to a Black woman, that a Black man is to protect a Black woman at all costs, and he is to never disrespect or harm her. Absolutely no exceptions to the rule. And that has to be rule number one. In other words, we will be able to tell who we are and gauge how much we will move as a people based on how our men treat our women. If we don't get that, we can talk group economics till we're blue in the face. We can talk educational institutions till we're blue in the face. We can talk all of the other ills that need to be addressed as much as we want to, but until we get the fact that Black men are going to have to step out and cover our women, we're going to have a problem. And one thing that bothers me, and I'm pretty sure that at some point it's going to pop up here, if it hasn't popped up already, it's going to pop up here. And that is, let me do this while I'm thinking about it. All right. Sweet T, I've made you a moderator. I told you I was going to do that, so I went ahead and did it. But I'm pretty sure people are going to pop on here. One of the things, nothing really ticks me off more when I'm talking about this subject than Black men who like to blame Black women for the ills in the Black community. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm about holding everybody accountable for the culpability and the role they play. But see, I'm real big on understanding the dynamics of leadership. And what I mean by that is, in leadership, you have a responsibility for more than yourself. In any form of leadership, if you go to a CEO and the company, the CEO has great vision, the CEO has a great strategy, a great plan, but the people in the company aren't executing. The board of directors is going to fire the CEO. It's actually the employees that aren't performing, but the CEO doesn't know how to use the leadership to implement the strategies and the plans and all these great ideas. So he's not a good leader. You can have a great talented team in any sport and have a great coach with a great mind, but if he can't get the players to play at the level of their talent, he will be fired. The players will still have a place on the team as long as they're under contract, but the coach will be fired. Why? Because the leader is responsible for being able to get the best out of their people. So while you can sit up and point the fingers at who's all doing wrong, who keeps considering themselves to be the king? Who keeps considering themselves to be the leader? Who keeps considering themselves to be the head? See, if I'm the head of my household, I don't get to point the finger at my wife and say, well, she did this, so we're screwed. No, I have to sit up, first of all, and be able to handle what's happening, and then be able to get her to understand the importance of following my lead so that it doesn't happen again. And I have to do it within the confines of love, respect, and concern and care. I'm not here to dominate you, love. I'm not here to boss you around. I'm here because there are certain things I can get us through that you can't. That's why I'm here. And then I get her to trust what I'm doing for the family. And I do that by making sure she understands, as long as I'm here, you're never alone. When my wife and I first got together, like I said, we had worked together professionally for about a year. Then we got together. Then when she came back around, it was like May of that year. And we decided, and I told her, I said, I want you to be my wife. We didn't date. We didn't do anything. I had spent a year working with her. I knew who she was. I knew when I was working with her that when it was all said and done, that we were going to be married. I had made up in my mind, this is the woman I'm going to marry. Don't need to date. I just need to know her character, because everything else we're going to build together. And so when she came around, I told her that. At the time, I was in another city. I was from Houston, but I wasn't living in Houston. She was, but I wasn't.
And I said, well, it's time for me to come home. And so I said, I'm going to pay a visit. The day that I come down to visit and spend some time with her, her mother passes away. And as with Black people, and I'm not going to get too much into the intricacies of it, but my wife is very transparent, so I don't feel bad about sharing what I do share, because it's probably in a book, or in this case, this came after the books. Well, some of it because we rewrote it later to add some updates to it. But anyway, family turned on her. So it was just her trying to take care of it all by herself. And one of the things that I heard her say is that at a time when she felt she didn't have anything and she just wanted to just dwindle away, she said, I came along and I held her. I took her hand and I held her. And she said she never felt so safe the moment that she was walking up to view her mom in that casket at the funeral, by the way I held her. And we were talking the other day, and it's been years. We were talking the other day. She said, and you've never let go. And I haven't. And I was telling a client today, I said, and the fact that I've never let go isn't because of how I feel. See, that's the thing that happens with men who harm women. They get caught up in their feelings. They behave based on how they feel. I don't treat my wife based on how I feel. And people say, what do you mean? I said, there are some times I tell my wife, right now, baby, today I ain't feeling you at all. You know, right now I ain't feeling you at all. I'm not liking you right now, but I love you. So what does that mean? When I go to bed tonight, no matter how I feel, I'm going to hold you. When I get up in the morning, I'm going to kiss you. When you walk out of the door, I'm going to make sure I carry your bags. My wife is not allowed to carry anything heavier than her purse, or she's in trouble. She's not allowed to open any door on her own, or she's in trouble. And I'm going to do that no matter how I feel. Because there's some days I'm looking at her like, oh my gosh, she's getting on my nerve. But I'm going to open that door. I'm going to tell her I love her. I'm going to give her a kiss. Because, see, I don't know the day that she won't come back. And I'm not going to let her go out without knowing she's loved. And I'm not going to let her come in without knowing she's loved. I treat my children the same way. I love them no matter what's going on, because sometimes they're getting on my last nerves. I got teenagers. I got adults and teenagers for the most part. I got one 5-year-old that's turned 6 this Saturday. But the rest of them, either teenagers or adult. Most of them are grown. And so I'm looking at some of them, but I'm dad. I'm going to love you. I got you no matter what. And when it comes to my baby, my heart, my love, my wife, it's not about how I feel. It's about my obligation to love her. And love her has nothing to do with how I feel. People don't get that. Love to me is an execution of a performance of an obligation. It's what I promised her when I married her, that I would love her, honor her, cherish her, better or for worse, the death do us part. And nowhere in there said based on how I feel. I was telling my client that this morning, we act too much on how we feel, especially men. See, my job is to protect. I tell the boys all the time, yes, a man is supposed to provide, but before that, he's supposed to protect. See, provision sometimes gets kind of funny and shaky, especially for a Black man in America. You might lose your job. It might be a little hard to find one before you can get back. It might take a little while before you can hold it all down. But the one thing you can always do is say, no one will ever harm you as long as I'm breathing. One thing you can always say is, not on my watch. You will not get to mine without coming through me. You can always say that. You don't need a job to protect. You don't need anybody's permission to protect. And that's what we've got to teach. But we've got to start with them young. That's what the rite of passage is in Black Men League. Start with them young, instill in their mind what it is. We don't socialize them. And what we learned through the studies from the work that was done by Dr. Joy DeGruy, who most people know for post-traumatic slave syndrome, but she's also done work on African-American adolescent violence. And also Howard Stevenson, Dr. Howard Stevenson out of the University of Pennsylvania. And so they've done a lot of work. Dr. Fully Love has done work. I've got a lot of stuff out there that you can look up and see the work we've done on this academic work and research. There's actually a lot of research that shows that about 70% to 75% of young men who have been purposely, black males who have been purposely socialized properly into manhood, and they have an understanding of what their role is in the community. They have an understanding of what's expected of them in the community, that they are 75% less likely to become criminal minded, incarcerated, or violent. So now we're starting to say that actually, when we properly socialize Black men, they are actually less likely to commit violence than the average male, especially white men. It's the environment and it's the lack of proper male modeling and leadership that's basically saying, hey, raise yourself. I don't know any species without modeling that will properly develop into what they're capable of being. They have to see it. Social learning theory tells us this. Now, don't lose sight that we're also passing down trauma that we haven't dealt with. I saw someone earlier talk about mental health. We've got a lot of mental health issues that aren't being dealt with. And then we have an environment in which Black men don't feel safe talking about their mental health issues. There are very few safe spaces. We have a couple in Houston where we sit down, both of them at barbershops, and we sit down and it's no holds barred. Everything's on the table, no ridicule, no judgment. We talk about it. We talk about everything from feeling inadequate sometimes. Some men can't carry the load of the bills. How does that feel to know that your wife makes more than you? Let's talk about it. How does it feel that you're at a point in your relationship where you're really seriously considering stepping out on your wife? Let's talk about it, because sitting up pretending like you're not, that's not what's happening, is not going to make it go away. And so what is it that we can do as men? And I've seen some great stuff coming up on this thread as I glance over, and I promise I apologize if I'm not addressing it all. But yes, something else. Man, I pull up with my wife the other night. We're going to get something for the kids, and we decide we're not cooking. Sometimes I cook, sometimes she's cooking. It just depends on who's done what during the day. I try to keep her out of the kitchen as much as possible. She's definitely the cooker in the house. But there are things I do extremely well and I'm the best at, and sometimes I get called upon. But you know, we decided we're not cooking, so we go out to grab something for the kids. We pull up, and there's his cat. He's got his 7-year-old son. He looks to be at least 30, and the kid looks to be about 7. The kid gets out. He's in his school uniform, looks nice. The cat gets out. His pants is down to below his ass, and my wife is sitting in the car. And I'm like, dude, really? Is this the example you set for the kid? Oh man, why you? I said, brother, I'm not trying to embarrass you or handle you like that. And I didn't do it in front of his son. I did it when he stepped away. But I'm like, we have to set the example. I'm all for fashion. I'm all for a lot of things. But I'm like, what kind of message are we sending when we can't respect our women? My whole thing is, if you want to sag, sag. But when a woman comes, especially an elder, someone older, my wife is 48. And so I know she's older than you. Pull your pants up, bro. But where that comes from is that's a generation that nobody told that to. I can almost guarantee you that guy doesn't have a dad, or the dad is street, or the dad is locked up. Because I guarantee you, I couldn't walk around if my grandfather was still living with my pants sagging. It ain't got nothing to do with whether, you know, whatever. And my whole thing is, I've talked to young kids. I worked with young kids for 30 years. I know why they do it, most of them. Some of it is just I saw somebody else doing it, and it's a trend and it's a fad. But it's a way of rebelling. It's a way of sitting up and saying, this is exactly what they don't want us to do, so we're going to do it. It's a way of taking power because I can't really experience it. It's that you've got to understand it, but at the same time, you don't tolerate it. You challenge them to rise above it. If you want real power, you're never going to get it sagging. If you want real power, I ain't saying you got to put on a suit, because I don't. I'm me, but I'm going to cover my body. I'm going to understand that undergarments are meant to be undergarments. That's why they are undergarments. They should not be showing. And so that's what I'm going to do. And so I challenge young boys, there's a level of respect. You talk about respect, but in order to get respect, you got to give respect. You're not being respectful when there are women around and you're showing your ass. Excuse me, ladies. And there's so much more. But when it comes to what we're talking about here today, Black men harming Black women, based on rejection. What that means is you're dealing with a couple of things: a certain level of psychosis, and nobody's willing to admit it because nobody wants to say they need help. And definitely no one wants to be categorized as being quote unquote crazy. So I'm going to do whatever I got to do. I'm going to cope with it. We're not going to deal with any of the issues that's the catalyst behind this rapidly advancing psychosis in Black men. And we're going to pretend like it's not happening. And it is. And so that's part of it. The other part is we have this fragile ego because we've developed a need to be validated. And one of the ways that we are validated is by the woman we have. And then when the woman we have no longer wants us because we don't know who we are, we were never properly socialized, we were never properly introduced to ourselves. We spend our whole time being validated by who we are with instead of who we are. So when that person says, I no longer want to be with you, now all of a sudden your whole world begins to crumble because you don't know who you are. You were never properly socialized. You were never introduced to yourself. You were never introduced to your history. You were never told where you came from. You were never told what you are capable of. You never were told what's possible in your life. So your accomplishment has been this relationship with this woman who deep down inside you don't believe you deserve. And the moment that she's sitting up and she starts to tell you that you're no longer what she wants, now it reminds you that you're really not anything special. And so now you strike out. You take power because you feel powerless. And I understand when somebody doesn't want you, it hurts. When somebody tells you, oh, it doesn't feel good. And you feel powerless because you can't will it back. You can't make somebody who doesn't want you, and you feel powerless. So the way that you take power is by taking a life. But what you don't understand is that you totally destroy the very substance of what Black manhood is when you take the life of a Black woman. See, the Black man is designed and built to protect. That's what happened with me and my wife. I came down to spend some time with her to kick off what we had already talked about being us getting married in the very near future. I don't play around with long engagements, anything. If I want you, we're going to build it. We're going to work on it. It's not going to be perfect. No matter how much I get to know you, if I need a 2-year engagement so I can get to know you. And then I get 2 years, and a year after that 2 years, which would be 3 years, you won't be the person you were in 2 years because you're growing, you're changing. That's the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard. What it is you find somebody with character, make a commitment to build through all the things you're going to go through because you're going to go through things. And you get where you need to be. But the one thing, like when me and my wife went through, is I had a clear understanding of my role. So nobody had to beg me to protect her. When I got down and I saw the family turning on her, I became the filter. And I'm the filter today. Anybody tell you, nobody gets to Marion unless they come through me. That includes the grown kids. Nobody's going to make her life worse without coming through me first. What you need? If you need something, call me. Because see, they know they can get her and she's going to go out. No, come through me. I got you. Everything comes through me. The siblings, you don't get to her without coming through me. Her dad, you the one that's got all this mess like this. You definitely don't get to her without coming through me. That's who I am supposed to be. And then people have actually asked me, because I celebrate my wife so much. They've asked me, man, what'll ever happen if she decides she don't want you anymore? Whatever happened if you find out she did it? I'm like, first of all, the idea of you asking that. I said, but let me tell you something. I don't control the future, but I'm not going to live my life in fear of what might happen. I'm going to love her the only way I know how, and that's with all of me. And as long as she loves me with all of her, we're going to work this thing out. We're going to get to where we're going. But if ever one day she decides that she no longer wants to be with me, I'm going to be hurt. But I'm going to wish her the best. I'm never going to say anything negative about her. And she knows this because she knows the truth about some of the things I've dealt with the women in my family, my exes. She knows because she's experienced, she's watched it. And she's like, why won't you stand up and talk? I don't have to defend myself. Like my grandmother told me, I have chosen to let the life that I live speak for me. You are with me now, baby, because you see me living this life. You see me every day being what I am to you. You see me every day loving your kids like my own, treating them no differently than I treat my own. I came in that way. That's the way I was reared. So you see me, you know who I am. Why do I got to explain? Why do I got to defend myself? Why do I got to go off and attack? I don't have to. I'm going to let the life that I live speak for me. Now, if they infringe upon me too close, or they start to attack things I love, I deal with it. But I don't need to defend myself. I'm a big boy. I got thick skin. You got to do way more than talk about me to get under my skin. You got to do way more than sit up and say something negative about me to get me riled up. You want to get me riled up, go after what I love, and you will feel me. No questions asked, no provocation. I will touch you if you come after what I love. But other than that, I'm good. But what I am trying to get across to you is that there is a need to properly socialize our young boys. And that's what we do with Black Men Lead. But here's something else that I've decided that I'm going to do. We've got to come up with a way that we can really, truly look at the uniqueness of this new dynamic. This is worse than what we would normally see in domestic violence cases where women are trying to get away from dangerous and abusive men. This is really escalating into something that it's become far too common. So we need to have a plan. So I'm talking about domestic violence experts. I'm talking about trauma, traumatic injury, and people, experts, mental health experts that specialize in trauma, which is one of the areas I specialize in. We need to create environments for healing, but we also need to create strategies for exit. We need to be able to get these women out of these relationships so they can't be harmed. We need to be able to let women know while we are in this particular era of our plight as a people, you got to be careful who you tell you don't want to see you no more. That's scary. That's a shame, but I would rather have you alive than having you say, I told them exactly what was on my mind, because you don't know where a lot of these people are. We're going to have courses so you can recognize the red flags, recognize the signs of men who are emotionally and mentally unstable, recognize that before you get into a situation so that they get fixated on you and that you become the center of their identity and ultimately end up being the fixation on which they literally set and stage and assess who they are in the world. We really have to be aware of this. What am I getting at? There's work to do. I can't do it by myself. I've got the research upon research. I can talk to you about the way to socialize young boys so we don't have another generation of unstable men. That's my number one priority. Why? Because like Frederick Douglass says, it's so much easier to create strong children than it is to fix broken men. So that's the thing. I need people who are willing to work with me. I need people who are willing to fund the research and the program development. I need people who are willing to sit down and talk about how we can make this thing national. We have a rite of passage, which is a socialization mechanism that we need to implement into the lives of young boys who don't have fathers in the home. We also need to lend support to Black men who are trying to get it done and may be overwhelmed. We need to be doing this on a grand scale. I can tell you this a million times and I still will not have told you enough, that if we don't find a way to fix this, it's nothing we're going to do that's going to elevate us out of the situation we're in. Because I've said this, I don't know how many times, that we're only going to get as high as our women are able to spiritually lift us. And we're only going to get as far as our men are able to physically lead us. That we're going to have to learn how to merge the masculine energy of our men and the feminine energy of our women to create synergy that takes us to this level, that puts us in a place of transcendency, that nothing, no one, no system, no racist system or anything can stop us. We're that gifted, we're that powerful, we're that anointed, but we cannot do it if we are infighting. If that thing, there's an old African proverb, and I'm pretty sure y'all heard it. All heard it before. It says, if there's no enemy on the inside, the enemy on the outside can do us no harm. What's actually destroying us now isn't racism. It's the enemy on the inside that makes us vulnerable to the mechanisms and machinations of racism. It is now time for us to rise up and purify and literally purge ourselves from every poison, every cancer, every darkness that's inside of the scope of our collective. And it's time for us to start standing up and being who we are naturally designed to be. But we're going to have to hold men accountable. We're going to have to hold our women accountable. Women, you got to demand more. You got to expect more, and you got to be willing to be patient enough to observe what's coming at you so you don't step into something that's dangerous. But at the same point in time, men, we cannot allow this to keep happening. When they do something to our women, it shouldn't even get to the courts. That's got to be a part of the code. And that's on on the Odyssey Project site, the code of conduct. We have to apply consequences to negative behavior. That's the rule of life. That's a universal rule. It is consequence that governs the vast majority of behavior. Yeah, there's some good people that behave based off of moral and ethics, but the vast majority of people behave based off of what they feel they can get away with. When you send a message that the Black woman is off limits and that we will not stop until we destroy anybody that attempts to destroy them, watch what happens to us as a whole. We are not protecting the spiritual womb of our movement. I hope you heard what I just said. We are not protecting the spiritual womb of our movement. I don't want to hear about how ratchet a Black woman is. I don't want to hear about how confrontational a Black woman is. I don't hear about all that, because that comes from weakness. If you're not strong enough to stand up and let your presence be felt, I have come, man, my sisters are some of the most confrontational and aggressive is. I have no problem being the patriarch of our family now that the older men have died off. I'm a leader. My wife, oh my God, very, very confrontational, except for with me. And I'm not physically abusive to her. I'm not verbally. I don't raise my voice to my wife. And sometimes it annoys the hell out of her because I don't have to boss you around or push you around. That's what you call presence. There are no excuses for not leading. There are no excuses for not standing up and being a man. Yes, there are some of our girls out there that are out there bad. There are some that are ratchet. There are some that just don't want to hear it. There are some that just not going to get it. But what I can tell you is this, and I can tell you from a lot of experience in dealing with a lot of Black girls in programs that I've created, programs that I've administrated, and in having counseled hundreds and hundreds of women over the last 25 years. I can tell you this, that the Black woman can be loved back to life. That's what I told my wife when she came into my life. I said, I'm going to love you back to life. Life came along in so many different ways. From the time you were 5 years old, it tried to destroy you. It took your light, and it brought darkness. You've gone through sexual molestation at 5, rape at 14, rape at 16, domestic abuse, abandonment. Watch your mother almost killed by your father with a garden hoe. You've watched your mom die in front of you. I mean, I said, I'm going to love you back to life. And I'd be damned if I didn't do it. So don't tell me what can't be done. I know what she was, and I know who she is. And I'm grateful that I got to play a role in that. Was it easy? Hell no. Did I have to dust my ego off a couple of times? Yeah. But I knew who I was long before I met her. So I could take a few little snaps at me, whatever, while we're going through the process. I don't got to go tit for tat with my woman. I'm a man. I don't do that. You know, I hit a little like, yeah. Okay. And what she'll tell me is, one thing that she has told me is, I don't tell you this when we're doing it because I'm mad at you. But when things get real hectic, it's the calmness in you that settles me. I'm telling you that when you lead right, our women will get behind us. But you can't get mad at them because they don't want to follow what they can't trust. You cannot get mad when they don't want to trust you. It's that simple. Now, simple don't mean easy. It means simple. You go out there and you be a man. It's going to be hard, especially for a Black man. There's so many things we're up against that most people don't even realize because we internalize. We've got to learn how to be there for one another. We've got to learn how to stand together. That's the challenge. So here, this is what I want you to do. Email me if you have any expertise in any of the areas that I've mentioned. Mental health, domestic violence, helping women escape domestic violence, counseling, and anything else. Email me at, no matter of fact, I'm gonna put it in the thing, CEO at Project 21 at PLP. Yep, that's right. There you go. All right. And for those of you who are in a position to help, show us some love and support by supporting us at all right, or the Cash App, which is and all right, that's that. So we really need support. So you can support us by clicking the donate link or giving through Cash App if you want to be a part of creating this network. And I mean it. We've got to create strategies. We've got to train our young babies of what to recognize and look for in men. We need to train our men what to do and how to exhibit it. We've got to be models of manhood in our communities. We've got to be present. A lot of what I get in contact are single mothers who are coming to me with teenage sons that they're losing control of, and they're scared they're going to lose their sons. That's like the number one concern that comes across my desk via email, via phone call, and text message is, look, I have a 16-year-old, I have a 15-year-old, and he's starting to do this and he's starting to do that. I don't know what to do. I've done everything I can. And it's going to take a lot at that age. If he hasn't had manhood modeled for him, it's going to take a lot at that age, but I can't let it go past. So I'm fighting, trying to reach these kids and help these mothers. And so now I've got situations where I'm actually bringing mothers in to counsel them, to get them help. Because if you've been a single mother and you've reared a 16-year-old Black male, you've got scars. You're overwhelmed because you're trying to take on a role you weren't built for. You were built to be the nurturer. You were built to be the educator. You were built to be the initial force, but you can't teach him how to be a man. You can't model it. You can't even model the first transition from being a little boy to feeling like you're a big boy or a man. And that's moving from sitting on the stool to standing up when you urinate. That's modeled. That's how early the modeling starts. We need to understand that the idea that I don't need a man is BS, and it was given to us for the purpose of destroying us. We have to start and actually say we're going to make a difference. So that's the challenge that I'm making to every last person that sees this video now and anytime moving forward. Be a part of the solution. It's not just about talking. That's one of the promises I made when I created my first channel. Thanks YouTube for snatching that, but I created my first channel. It was that I'm going to bring truth, but I'm never going to talk about a problem without talking about the solution. I'm not here to complain and whine. I'm here to be my name on nothing. Like I said, I'm letting the life that I live speak for me. I'm living a life that will be a legacy, and I'm going to be okay with that. I'm okay with planting seeds that will take longer than I live to come to fruition. And we need more men like that, that aren't trying to get the immediate pat on the back. Men who are willing to sit up and say, I'm going to plant this seed, but it may take 15 to 20 years before this seed actually takes root and bears food. And I may be gone by then, but I tell you what, people will know I was here. See, that's what a legacy speaks for you long after you're gone. So, Black men, it's time to love our women back to life. Black women, it's time to start demanding more of Black men and demanding more of yourself. It's time to start living life at the level of our designs. And it's time to stop allowing all of the issues in the past and the situations of the present to define who we are as a people. So this is my challenge. It's time to rise. I dare you to even give a moment of thought to what's possible if we live in our potential. That's my challenge to you. Let's rise as a people. Let's rise. And it comes with taking ownership of what needs to change, taking ownership of what needs to be repaired. And so with that being said, I am standing up and I'm saying, come work with me, join me, call me, email me, support the work we do. There's a role for everybody. Nobody is a sideline player. Everybody is supposed to be on the field doing something. Some people are going to be financiers. Some people are going to be strategists. Some people are going to be tactical. Some people are going to be the developers of new programs and ideas and implement. Other people are going to work in think tanks. All of this is necessary for us to rise, but it's possible. That's my challenge to you. My challenge to you is let's make it happen. And on that note, I'm going to get ready to get off of here once again for those who are going to stand up. Hey, Tamara. Hey, how's it going? Glad to see you pop in before it's over. It's time for us to do something exceptional. It's time for us to do something extraordinary. It's time for us to rise up and live at the level we're capable of living. And so that's my thing. Let's do it. Again, thanks a lot for everything that is about to happen, because I believe we're going to do something. I'm believing that we're going to make a difference. We've got to protect our women. We've got to back our men. We've got to build stronger men. And I believe it's possible. I believe that the Black Men Lead Rite of Passage Initiative is a major tool that needs to be used on a national level. And for those of you who have been actually contacting me about getting this stuff set up in your communities, don't stop contacting me. That's what we're working on. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure you have what you need. Let's get together. Let's make it happen. Hey, what's going on, Terry? Look, it's always a blessing to be a part of something. And I've given myself to this my entire adult life, actually since the 11th grade. I saw Dr. Frances Cress Welsing on the Phil Donahue show in 1985. And she inspired me to study psychology and to be a part of the solution. And from that, I was introduced to Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. Khaled Muhammad, Neely Fuller Jr., Dr. Claude Anderson, and so many other elders that laid the foundation, or Dr. Joy DeGroot, that laid the unbelievable foundation on which I get to stand and research and study and build. And I just remember that woman sitting there, and this is 85. This is on the heels of a movement that was pushing Black intellectual inferiority in the late 70s and early 80s. And here's this Black woman on this white show with all these white academics, and she's killing it. She's killing it, and she's not bending, breaking, backing up. She's not folding. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to be me. I'm going to speak truth to power just like her. Here I am 30 plus years later, 35 years later, doing it. And I'm going to do it until I pass away. And my goal is to leave behind me a legacy that speaks for me. And if it's after I'm gone that people realize the depth of what I've done, I'm okay with that. I'm not here for the pat on the back. I want my people to win. And on that note, And on that note, Erlene, hey. On that note, we've got work to do. We can't keep being okay with our men hurting our women. And we're going to have to do more than say that's trifling, that's sorry, that's evil, shaking my head. We're creating them. They're not born that way. We're allowing young Black males to rear themselves, or we're leaving the burden of rearing Black men on Black women as single parents. That's no longer acceptable. There is no excuse for it. Black men who are able, we need to stand in the gap. That's my challenge. Take it on. It's not going to be easy. Hell, it's hard raising your own. Trust me, I know. But we don't have a choice. This isn't about what's easy. This isn't about what's comfortable. This is about what's absolutely necessary for the preservation of our race. Share this. Put it out there. It's time to stand up and do what's right, not what's easy. And on that note, I'm out of here. I appreciate you guys spending almost an hour with me. I absolutely love you from the bottom of my heart. I don't have to know you to love you. The Blackness in you is all I need to know. And that's the first thing I see in myself when I wake up, is that I'm a Black man. Not the degrees on the wall. Not what businesses I run. Not what connections I have in any particular area. I'm a Black man, and I'll never separate myself from that. I'll never hide from it. Run sisters, my daughters, most definitely my queen, and I'll fight to the death to protect them. And I'm going to create an army of young Black men who will do the same thing. We're going to make it happen. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.